Hello everyone, and welcome back to the Yu-Gi-Oh! Rated Duels series thingamadoodle. And today I will be using a Chainburn deck. It's one that I net decked from TCG Players something. I'll put it in the description, it'll be awesome. You guys can use it too. It's a deck I have found much success with. It has actually won a big fancy competition in, I believe, Germany. And today we will be doing two duels. I'm doing the recording for this a little different than I have pretty much everything else on my channel. So far, I've pretty much done live recordings for everything, including the first episode of the Rated Duel series. And this is a post-recording for the narration. So it's something I've never personally done before. It's something I'm not really used to, so bear with me if I fuck up, because I'm awful and don't know what I'm doing. But I believe that this layout for the videos will be a lot better for the sole fact that A, I don't use every duel I record, since I only want to post duels I A win, and B, do things that are relatively smart or don't do anything stupid in. And recording live, it's a lot of wasted intros, a lot of wasted time talking, a lot of waste that I don't need, because it just makes it difficult because I don't use it all. In something where it's like a let's play, I have to include everything, and it makes sense, and everything's fluid, and I know what's going on. But in something like this, where I don't use everything I record, I have to be a little bit more picky, and it saves me so much time, and it lets me be a little bit more focused on what I'm talking about, because what I'm going to try and do with this series is to use different decks every game, or at least keep it generally fresh. Like, I might use this Chainburn deck some way in the future, but hopefully not for a while. And it's just kind of trying to show you how to use them, which I've done an awful job so far. So basically what this Chainburn deck is about is using Ojama, which you see on the playing field there, to put 3 tokens in their monster area. And it does a couple things. It A, blocks 3 of their spots from being used by their monsters, and C, sets up Just Desserts, which I have in my hand. Right now he has 5 monsters on the field, including my tokens. I hit him for 2,500 with each Just Desserts. So the goal of this deck is to Ojama them and fill up all their spots, and then just Desserts them till they're dead, basically. And then I've got other cards like Meteor of Destruction, Thunder Short, Secret Barrel to do damage. But the main bread and butter of this deck is the Just Desserts and Ojama. I also have a couple trap cards that knock back damage, like Dimension Wall and Magic Cylinder. Another part of this deck is drawing cards, like using Card D, Legend of Yatagarasu, Jar of Greed, Accumulative Fortune, I believe Reckless Greed at one point, which I've actually ended up taking out. Just a bunch of cards to draw the cards that you use or need. And then the third and final part of this deck is, it's kind of like a trifectum of douche, and I find it wonderful, is the negate side. You use cards like Swift Scarecrow, Battle Fader, Threatening Roar, Iron Scarecrow. I'm drawing a blank on what the card's called. Scrap Iron Scarecrow. That's what it's called. Yeah. Scrap Iron Scarecrow, Swift Scarecrow, Battle Fader, Waboku, Magic Cylinder, to make it where they don't touch you, and you just kind of wait it out till you get your Just Desserts, Ojama, Thunder Shorts, and all that wonderful stuff. But I believe this dude, the only time he hits me is using Ukazi, and then I just kind of GG him from there. And if he wouldn't have had Ukazi, which is more direct damage, he wouldn't have been able to touch me, because I had Scrap Iron Scarecrow. Battle Fader and Swift Scarecrow are monsters that you can play from the hand that end the battle phase right then. Swift Scarecrow you send from the hand to the grave when someone declares an attack, and Battle Fader you special summon onto the field. So that was a quick 5-minute match that I won in quite easy fashion. And right here he actually says that it's a really good deck, which I can't really take credit for it, but he was happy with it, and he wanted to look through the graveyard and look at some of the cards to put in his deck, I guess. Which I don't know why he would put part of a chain burn deck in an actual deck. I mean, I guess the Ojama Trio Just Desserts thing would be cool if you could kind of get it randomly in the middle of a game. Because it could win you a game really fast if you're playing an actual game and it's close. But in most instances, it wouldn't be helpful because it's such a random set of cards. It'd be really difficult to get them all right in a row when it's not what your whole deck's about. So here we start the second game, and this game is really goofy because this dude was also using a unordinary deck. He was using a discard deck, I guess would be the best way to put it. He uses cards that make me destroy cards or mill cards or discard them from my hand. Basically, the goal of his deck is to make it where I have no cards left in my deck and I have to forfeit because they're all in the graveyard. So right here I get an amazing hand in an average game because between Scrap Iron Scarecrow, which blocks one attack every turn, Dimension Wall, which basically acts like Magic Cylinder itself, Battle Fader, and Swift Scarecrow, I've got a bunch of negate right here, but he never declares an attack, so I don't need to use any of it. So in an average game, it's really good to get negate early, because if you don't have negate early, you can run out of it, and it can really bite you in the ass. There was a game I played not so long ago using this deck, and I got my opponent down to 300 life points. He had 300 life points, I had 8,000, and he came back and won because I couldn't get negate to save my life, and I wasn't getting anything to just hit him. And that's where this deck can bite you in the ass. So use your negate wisely, don't just waste it. Like I used to waste Threatening Roars just to get extra chain to boost up a cumulative... what's it called? A cumulative fortune and Chain Strike, which was a really, really awful idea because that's one turn where they can't hit you. That's one more turn to draw. That's one more turn that you can turn the game around or save the game. So if you use this deck, don't waste any of your negate if you don't have to. Save them for crucial times. I mean, don't take damage you don't need to, which is where Scrap Iron Scarecrow really, really helps. But like I said, this dude's using a really goofy deck right now. He has 2 Gravekeeper's Servants, which make it where to declare an attack, I have to mill 1. Since he has 2 of them out, I have to mill 2 every time I declare an attack. But luckily for me, I don't declare attacks with this deck. The only monsters I have in this deck are Battle Fader and Swift Scarecrow, which are both negates, as I've said before. And Card D, which Card D is normal, summon it in main phase 1, and then you can tribute it, I believe it's tributing, and you get to draw 2, and I don't attack with any of those. And then Needleworm, this is the bread and butter of this guy's deck, is Needleworm and Penguin Soldier. Needleworm, when you flip it face up, you have to mill 5. And then Penguin Soldier makes it where I don't have to do anything. Penguin Soldier makes it where he can return 2 cards to an owner's hand, and he uses it on Needleworm and then Penguin Soldier itself, as you can see there. So he'll put those both back in his hand, and then he gets to just summon them the next turn, and it's an infinite loop of douche. It's a really smart infinite loop of douche, but in a normal deck that could be really detrimental because you could lose a big card, which, I mean, in any deck you can lose a big card, but you could lose a big card, you could run them out of cards to draw. It's just a stall deck, and it's a really aggravating stall deck on top of it. But it didn't beat mine, because my deck is wonderful and off the internet, so it's unbeatable. I was going to mention something else. Ah, yes. This deck is actually also a really, really good counter to my deck, because half the point of my deck is drawing cards, and lots of them burning through cards to get to Ojama Trio Just Desserts combo, using cards like Pot of Duality, Jar of Greed, Legend of Yatagarasu. There's a lot of cards like that where especially stuff like Jar of Greed and Legend of Yatagarasu, where it's basically just you waste that card to draw a second card on top of it. So all that is kind of a card waster and a filler to get you to your other cards. And since half my deck is already burning through my deck really fast, using Needleworm just burns through my deck even faster. And by the end of this, I don't remember what the exact numbers are, but his deck is at least twice the size of mine. Well, what's left of our decks. I've got like 10 cards. He has at least 20. I'm from what I remember. So he does have a really good counter to my deck. I just have this deck built well enough that I could beat him. Because between Secret Barrels and Just Desserts and stuff like that, I was okay. I don't believe I've actually described what Secret Barrel does yet. You might have seen it on screen. I've used it a couple times. The effect is actually awesome. I love this card. I recommend this for basically any deck. It's just kind of like a throw it in there trap card, because it's good in generally every situation unless you're running against someone who doesn't keep a lot of cards on the field or in their hand, because the effect is that when you flip this card face up, you deal damage equal to the number of cards they control plus the number of cards in their hand times 200. So in an instance like this, he has 6 on the field and 5 in his hand, so that is 11 times 200 is 2,200. So he would deal 2,200 damage with one card, and I do apologize for Facebook popping up. Again, I wasn't talking, so I kind of forgot I was recording and went to go check Facebook, and it hit me as soon as I clicked it. But that's not a big deal. He is using Swords of Revealing Light, which is an awful idea and kind of a waste of a card in his situation, because I don't declare attacks. So there's nothing to protect from. I just laid down my Just Desserts, which is good, because Just Desserts do 1,500 damage in this situation. Yeah, it would be. It's 500 for each monster they have on the field, which is a fair amount of life points, seeing as though it just chopped him down to, what, 3,900? And I believe I hit him with 2 Secret Barrels for 2,600 each, and that's how I beat him. So Secret Barrels won this for me by doing over half, by doing, what, 5,200 damage? And that's with one that I actually ended up milling. So there are a couple ways to win with this deck. Thunder Shorts and Just Desserts with Ojama Trio is a really good way to do it. And I have done a little bit of customizing to this deck, including adding the Scrap Iron Scarecrows, the Magic Cylinders, the Secret Barrels, the Thunder Shorts. Actually, the Secret Barrels might have been part of it. But I know the Thunder Shorts and the Magic Barrels, or Magic Cylinders, rather, Scrap Iron Scarecrows were all me. Scrap Iron Scarecrows might not either. I don't even remember. It's been a while. But that's beside the fact. It does have a little customization to it. Hand Destruction was okay by me in this position, because it lets me get rid of cards I don't need, including Waboku and Threatening Roar, since I don't use either of those in this deck. Got my second Secret Barrel, or my first Secret Barrel, I believe, and that's going to hit him for 2,600. Which you can see me if you watch my mouse move. I actually count the cards, because you count how many they have on the field. It'd be 5, and then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So that, plus the one they're about to draw, you can preempt the 2,600, because that'd be 13 cards. It's all about planning. That's what this deck's about. Planning ahead. Making sure you have enough negate to see you through. Make sure you use your damage cards to the fullest effect in the right ways, because 13 is about as big as you can usually get. I mean, the most you could get would be, let's see, that's 10, 11, you could get 11 on the field, including the field card, plus 7 in their hand, so that's 18, that's 3,600. You can only get about 1,000 higher damage than that, and that's at absolute max if they have everything used. But that has never really happened, nor do I think it ever does. So the most I've ever usually hit is about 2,600. That's about as good as it gets. Meteor of Destruction would be great right now, but it only works when they have 3,000 or more life points. I've got 15 cards, it says, and he has how many? 30. So right now he's got about double the cards I do, so he's actually in a good position. And right now I can't use any of the cards in my hand. The 3 monsters are all negates, either by throwing them to the graveyard or special summoning. It just negates attacks. Scrap Iron Scarecrow, I have one on the field, and he's not declaring attacks, so I can't use it. Dimension Wall, same thing. He's not declaring attacks. And there's my savior, Morphing Jar. Morphing Jar makes it where I have to get rid of all my cards in my hand and then draw 5. And that actually gets me the win, because now I don't have to wait. And in any case, that would usually be bad if you have anything good in your hand. But I got my Ogeometria, which I don't need, and I actually got Legend of Yatagarasu, Chain Strike, Magic Cylinder, Ogeometria, and Threatening Roar. So I got a couple cards I can't use, or 3 cards I can't use rather, and then I draw a Secret Barrel, and I make sure to count them up to make sure I have enough. And it's actually another 2,600, so I'll lay the Secret Barrel down, and that's GG. And as I've said before, this deck's really easy to use. It's really easy to pick up and do good with. I've only lost a couple games against very, very specific decks that are pretty much made to beat Chainburn decks, since Chainburn decks are always centered around not monsters. But the only monsters that are really good in a complete Chainburn deck are like the Achachas. But that is it for this episode of the Yu-Gi-Oh! Rated series. I hope you all enjoyed, and I hope to see you guys in other episodes with other decks. Recommend me decks to use down in the comments, and I will try and get around to using them. I hope you all enjoyed the video and have a wonderful day. Thanks.